So I want to take a minute to talk about something that I get questioned about all the time. So I thought I would take a minute to not only answer it in a way that matters to people who are going to be looking at this and trying to figure out what they want to do. Okay, so here's the quick answer to that is yes, you can get an IT job with an SNHU degree. But if that's all you came here for, there's your answer. You can go ahead and leave. I'll wait. Now, for those of you that want to know more, let's sit down and chat. Grab you some coffee or some water and let's talk. I want to be very clear about something right from the start. The degree by itself, it's not the magic. No school name, no piece of paper, and no online program is going to automatically hand you a career. I'm sure you know that part now, especially based off of everything that is happening in our current administration and our current world. This is being recorded May 11th, 2026. So I'm not sure when you are taking a moment to check this out, but that's when this is recorded. So what the degree can do is it gives you a structure because it is Southern New Hampshire University. It gives you the language to be able to talk to people in various different, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And it gives you a foundation, which is all that it's really supposed to do. So what gets you hired is what you do with what the degree puts you through. And I'll explain that too. So I'm saying this as someone who has been going to school while also working in real corporate IT. I'm not speaking from a book. I am speaking from a perspective of someone who has had to balance both assignments, working tickets. So if you work in IT or any type of job where you get credit for the amount of work that you do, there's tickets that has to be done, doing meetings, doing work documentation, troubleshooting, commuting, being exhausted, and still trying to build a future. So I think I have some credibility to be able to speak to you. So when people ask, can I get an IT job with an SNHU degree? My honest answer is yes, you can. But the better question that no one is asking is, how do you turn that degree into proof that you can actually do the work? They want to know if you can troubleshoot without panicking. And that speaks to something else, to just go off script for a moment. But people, when you get a ticket of something that you don't know, how you deal with that matters. Because do you just not take the ticket because you're afraid? Or do you not do the work because you are afraid? This is where you want to get into my next point. And employers want to know that you can document what you did. So if you did something and in a ticket, you can't write what you did, but you just know how to fix it, that's not really going to work for a company because that's not repeatable. So asking good questions, that's also something that we move into in our particular field. And keep moving the answer even if the solution is not obvious. So a lot of people think IT is just about knowing the right command or knowing the right tool or the right certification. And yes, the technical skills do matter. They matter a lot, but in the real world, especially in entry level and early career IT, your ability to communicate and stay steady matters just as much. Can you, for example, explain an issue to a user without making them feel stupid? Can you update a ticket so that a next technician understands what happened and doesn't have to ask more questions? Can you admit when you do not know something and still take the next logical step? Can you learn a system, respect the process, even if you disagree with it, and not create chaos around yourself? Okay, that is what is going to separate someone who has only studied IT from someone who is ready to work in IT. And I say that because it is very easy for you to study the requirements of IT, get the certifications X, Y, Z. And now you feel as if you're ready for working in IT. But I have been doing the current role that I am doing for 3 years. And when I first came here, there were a lot of things that I had no idea what I was doing. If you want to fact check me, look me up on LinkedIn, Giovanni, 2 N's, Hale, and take a look at my background. You will see that my background is focused primarily, the first portions of my life was in medicine. I did not have an IT background until I got out of the military in 2008. So now let's transition and talk about SNHU is not going to do all the work for you. No school will. I don't care if that's an Ivy League school or not. But what I think SNHU gives you is a path. It gives you assignments, deadlines, projects, and it really gives you exposure to concepts that you may not have touched on your own, which is what it's supposed to do. So there are going to be things you're going to touch and you're going to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. You're supposed to not have any idea what you're doing. That's why you're going to school. I am a systems thinker. Okay, so for me as a systems thinker, specifically in like cybersecurity, databases, networking, project management, user design, business communication, all of that's going to matter. And to be honest with you, you're going to go through all of that in your degree path. So the key is that you cannot treat the coursework like boxes to check because you have to turn the coursework into stories. And let me explain what that means, okay? Every project should become something you can talk about in an interview. So every paper should help you explain how you think. Every discussion post should help you practice communication and your technical skills in plain language. And this is going to be tough. If you are going into this thinking that you're going to use AI to score high, but then get out into the real world and not have anything to show but a degree, you from experience that will not work. You need a combination of things. That is one of the big misconceptions I think that people have, is that they're going to be able to take the easiest route possible and then get into IT, and it just doesn't work that way. So SNHU, for most people with SNHU, the biggest advantage that most people miss is that school is not just about learning facts. School is a place to build your vocabulary. It teaches you how to explain what you're thinking. And in my specific job, I work with executives. I work with the president of the company. I work with the CEO. I work with legal. I work with HR. I work with finance. So in doing so, I work with the top brass, if you will, of the company. And so being able to tailor my responses to different people, you're not going to talk to the president of the company the same way, for example, that you would talk to a customer service representative that's on the phone. Their time is different. So, and you being able to explain things in easy to understand language and then being able to tailor your responses based off of who you're speaking to will speak to your career skills. So when you're in front of a hiring manager, they're not just going to ask you, do you know what Active Directory is? Okay. Or they're not going to say, hey, do you know what MFA is? They're listening to how you think. So in regards, maybe you don't know what Active Directory is. Okay. Maybe you're wondering what an MFA is. Okay. I'll just use MFA as an example because it's very popular. Multi-factor authentication. In plain English, what does that mean? Multi-factor authentication ensures that, for example, if a bad actor had your laptop and they were able to get your password to get in and log into an account, the multi-factor authentication is what's going to prevent them from being able to get in to all of your things and into the company, because they also have to have your phone or access to it. So that's why it's called multi-factor authentication. It's because you have to have two things. And you'll hear people explain it differently, but what I just did is what you would have to be able to do in a job interview. They're listening to how you think, not necessarily that you can just solve a problem. They are asking themselves without hand-holding, can this person become useful on my team? That is where your degree, search, your experience, and your personal discipline all come together. So to switch gears here, let's talk about certifications, because that's something else I get asked about as well. Is like, hey, what certifications should I get, Gio, before I get into IT? You should get certifications. Yes, probably. Let me say this. Especially if you're trying to break into IT, there are certifications that can get you into the door. So you hear about like CompTIA, A+, Net+, Security+, Microsoft certifications, Google IT support, AWS, Azure, Okta, Jamf, Cisco. Okay, all of these are like great certifications, and people have asked me about each one of those, by the way. So they can help depending on the direction that you want to go. Somebody, for example, who is trying to get more into the infrastructure, networking side of things may not necessarily need to have a Okta or a Jamf certification. Okay, Jamf is JAMF. So if you want to look that up, by all means do so. But do not fall into the trap of thinking that certifications replace experience. They just simply do not. What they do is they give you a standard. A hiring manager is going to look, for example, at the hiring manager may not even know what a Network Plus certification is. They just know that this particular job requires it. Experience shows you that you can operate in a real world. Now, your certification may come in handy for Net Plus, but being able to troubleshoot a computer network issue, that's something that comes along with dealing with people over and over again on a help desk. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But the strongest combination is this. So degree, certification, and experience. That's how that would be my triad if I were writing something down. But if you do not have all three of those, do not freeze, okay? Don't think that you're out the game because of that. Start where you are. If you are currently in school, build your labs. Document what you learn. Create a GitHub. This is key. This is something I think a lot of people, they shy away from creating a GitHub. GitHub is where somebody's going to go look and see what you're doing because it's a place for you to be able to showcase your work. Okay, build a home lab if you don't have one. That's what I did in one of my networking class. I just built a home networking lab because I didn't understand some of the things that were happening. Volunteer for technical tasks. Help family and friends with basic technical issues. But document the process like a professional. You don't need you can use Google Drive for that. So you could go through and say, helped mom do XYZ. I'm going to talk to the people who use AI, okay? You can start an AI project and then go in and say, this is what I did, and then let AI, ChatGPT, Claude, let one of those create a whole entire document for you just based off of you telling them what you did. I helped mom reconnect her iPhone to the Wi-Fi. Boom. What were the steps that I took? This is what I did. That's how you're going to be able to show someone that you did it. Then you can take that and put that on your GitHub. All right. So if you're already working help desk, let me say this to you. Don't look down on help desk. Help desk is not beneath you. So help desk is where you learn how people actually use technology. Okay. Help desk is where you're going to see people, and a lot of people look down on help desk like help desk is like the worst place to be. It is a good start. And a lot of times there's quite a bit of turnover on help desk. So the opportunity of you getting in on the help desk and then escalating yourself from there is phenomenal, but you have to see it that way. Okay, it is where, in my opinion, you're going to learn patterns, okay? Like every Monday, you're going to deal with MFA, so multi-factor authentication issues. You're going to deal with device issues, something not connected to a network, a printer, VPN issues, software installs, updates, especially with Windows. You get a lot of updates that go out on a Tuesday, and then all of a sudden that breaks things down the pipeline. Access requests, you're going to deal with asset management, documentation gaps. So this is not small work, but it's often looked down on. People are just like, oh, it helped us. Like that's basic. And it's like, yeah, that's basic, but it gives you a really good foundation because you're going through the basic stuff and then you move up. So it's not small work. This is the foundation of like enterprise IT. That is always going to exist. Okay. I think of it the same way I did in my military career. I think of it as you would being in a hospital. There's always going to be okay, as long as there's a large population around, always going to be any. So understand, if you pay attention, help desk teaches you more than just troubleshooting. It teaches you the business impacts. It teaches you how technology actually fails or interrupts people's work. It teaches you like how systems break. So if you're a systems thinker like me, it teaches you how to write documentation so that you can save upstream or downstream time. That's really where I am. I do a lot of documentation in my particular role. Now, as a tier 2, it teaches you how bad processes create repeat problems. That's something that you'll learn as you get into IT if this is your first time. So it teaches you real experience. So here's the hard truth. The entry-level IT market can be rough. You may apply to a lot of jobs and hear nothing back. You may see entry-level jobs asking for 3 years of experience. You may feel like everyone else knows more than you. You may feel like your degree is not enough. You may start questioning whether you made the right choice. That does not mean that you are failing. It means that you are entering a competitive field where proof matters. So your job is to build proof, not vibes, okay? Proof that you can finish what you start, proof that you can understand systems. Remember what I was talking about with enterprises, systems, users, what risk, what is the business impact of what you're doing? That proof can come from projects, it can come from labs, it can come from internships, it can come from help desk work, it can come from remote help desk work. So don't think you always have to be in an office either. Documentation samples, certifications, classwork, and even content. If you're brave enough to put your learning in public, like I have been doing since I started school, that's another thing that I would tell students is like start documenting your journey. I've been doing this since COVID. This is 2026. Okay. I have been doing this journey since COVID. And I remember noticing that there was no one that documented their journey through SNHU. They would document parts and pieces of their journey, but a lot of the stuff that you would see was one video of them saying, is SNHU worth it? Well, how do we know that you went through all of this to get your SNHU degree? There's no proof. That's what I created, was my own proof, and that stands. You can look at all of the videos through this channel and the playlist. That will show you. You do not have to pretend to be an expert, all right? Just document what you're learning. Talk about the difference between a degree and a certification. Talk about what you learned in a networking class. Talk about building your first lab or failing like I did twice, but that's a whole nother video. Talk about what you misunderstood, okay? And then how that changed by either studying, talking to an AI, and then learning where your thought process went wrong and correcting yourself. Talk about what happened when you finally understood the concept. People are drawn to people. Even if it's a long video, like this is a long video, but this is a video that was needed. And this can be broken down into smaller pieces that people will be able to digest. That's why you do one big long piece and then you use something like Gling AI and then have Gling break this down and add things so that people can digest this 20 or 25 minute or 30-minute video into something that they can use. So I want to say, if you can help other people, that is why you would go into IT. Do not go into IT, or for that matter, you're not going to go into any role for just the pay. You got to be willing to help people. You have to go into it with the mentality that, okay, and you know how to communicate to people, whether it is through language, knowing multiple languages, being able to take complex things and make it understandable, being able to talk to somebody about how this affects the business and why it's important to get it done. Communication is one of the most underrated skills in IT. People just think it's technical. So because the best technicians, in my opinion, are not always the person who knows the most. It's sometimes the best technician is the person who can take a messy situation, slow it down, explain it clearly, and move it towards a resolution. So that is the person teams want. So can you get an IT job with SNHU degree? That is the question. Yes, you can, but do not sit back and wait for the degree to do the work. Use the degree as a platform. Use your assignments as interview material. Use your projects as proof. Use your certifications to strengthen your profile, but don't lean on it. And use the help desk or support roles to build real-world pattern recognition and ensure that you are documenting. A company can go and look at this video, which is public, and say, is this a person I want to hire? Is he able to explain things to people easily? Use documentation to show how you think. All right, use every small step as part of a larger system. So the goal is not to just graduate. The goal is to become employable, and employment means usefulness, being reliable, being trainable, being clear, being professional. Think about when you go see a doctor. If the doctor was like, hey, you know what? I need to go because of this. And it was like 5 minutes into you talking to that person's not professional or steady. You may not go back to that individual again. The degree can help you get there, but you still have to build the person around the degree. So that is the part nobody can hand you. So if you are at SNHU right now and thinking about going, or let's say you're thinking about going there, my advice is this: take the work seriously. Okay. Do not just chase the grade. Okay. I had to learn that early on. I was chasing the grades and I wasn't doing well in the content and I was struggling with it. It was because my grade was a D. Build the skill. So I retrained myself, built the skill. I built the story of me being an online student over 40 years old. What does that feel like? Because that's my target audience. Building proof. That is what I'm doing. You are listening to it as proof of me sharing from up front, where you may be just getting on this ride. I've been on this ride for years, so I can tell you what it's like and some potholes for you to avoid running over. So when you apply for jobs, do not present yourself as someone waiting for permission to enter. My suggestion to you is present yourself as someone already becoming an IT professional, because that mindset matters. You are not just trying to get hired. You are building a career. And yes, an SNHU degree can absolutely be a part of that career, but the degree is not the finish line. It is one component of the system. You still have to operate the system. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time. I know that that was a really long video. If you watched it up to this point or you listened to the podcast up to this point, I want to thank you. And please leave a comment if there is something a question that you have, leave it up under the video, and then we can talk later.